All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Life Between the Sticks. This time, Cody, you're not enough. We needed a guest.
Yes, we did. I have my buddy Trevor Stiles on. He is the current owner and forever owner of Aviata Goalkeeping.
Well, I don't know about forever owner. We'll go founder, current owner. You never know where things go.
This is true.
You,
That's
you never
great.
know how it's going to go. Good to have you on, guys. Thank you very much.
I'm excited. Obviously, as a goalkeeper, I loved all the different gloves, the technology, designs that go into it. Obviously, if they're not the right color blue, Cody will ship them back. But you do wear Aviata gloves.
I do, yes. And I actually have my favorite pair here, the Gotham Roll. Trevor, do you maybe want to expand on the Gotham a little bit?
After being discontinued for 2023 fall.
No, they're not.
Same glove code, same glove, but they're going. You'll actually prefer this. We're going classic British, old school. We're going all white, black logos.
Ooh, okay. I do like that.
Yeah,
I
I
do
know you
like
would.
that. Oh,
We're
Reminds me
we're,
of
yes.
we're
like,
taking this back to like mid 2000s. Real
Love it.
simple, real
White
classic.
and
Glove
black.
doesn't change besides that.
Oh,
Everything's the exact same. We're just gonna go classic white glove, black logos, make it pop.
fantastic.
that reminds me of cells back in the day.
Ah,
Yep.
I see. I was gonna say, but I didn't know yet. The original cells before, right? Because cells was Adam, and then the guy from Cellsport, right? And they got in a massive fight, and Adam kept all the players. Cellsport, what's my first name was, broke off, made Cellsport, kept the factories, but all their original stuff, just simple, classic.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievably good stuff. Like the old Cells Aqua Wrap,
Yes.
possibly one of the best gloves ever made. Like as much as I love my gloves, I'm a glove nerd. This is why I started this after I stopped playing. And for me, the old school cells, like that H2O wrap, Aqua Wrap, yo, that was a glove.
That
They've had
was a
some
glove. I
real
agree.
I
beauties.
told you. I told you. I'm
Yeah,
in there. I
I
love the gloves. I read the catalogs. I had the Eurosport back in the day.
never
Like,
heard of them before I went over to England, and as soon as I went to England, I saw a couple guys wearing them, and I went straight into them and loved them.
No,
And
yeah.
then,
they
yeah,
were some. They're still good now. Don't get me wrong. And it's a different
absolutely.
thing. They spent so much money on endorsees. I remember they were Adam was spending 100 grand on Ben Foster, 100 grand so and so. It's different now. Now it's Pro Direct technically owns them, if I'm not mistaken,
hmm
and Adam still has a salary and gets a royalty per glove sold. Don't quote
Interesting.
me on that, but it's some sort of setup like that now.
Well, if
Interesting.
Hence why
Mike
you see
Ashley's
them,
got his hands on it.
Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah.
Since you'll see them more in Pro Direct, but yeah, but I mean, like a lot of our gloves, as like they're not like old school. Like we have new modern stuff and all that fun stuff, but we're very classic. And for me, a glove is
Yeah.
something you put on, you can feel it's there. It's not just like a speed glove or whatever new age stuff. And we still have those, but on a selfish note, I still make a bunch of stuff like this, like the Yeti, the magnetic. If you're a keeper and you've been a keeper for let's call our generation and a little younger, you put those on, you go, yes, that's what a glove feels like. But to
Yeah.
each their own. Everyone does their own thing, and here we are. But yeah, the
Absolutely.
those old school cells, or like even the old school Sondicos with the
Oh,
titanium palm. I remember when I was in Scotland, being at a wasn't a Lily Whites. Where was I in the mall? And because I didn't have a glove deal, I was over there on trial at Dundee United, and I picked up a pair of Sondico SSGs or SSMs with the
Yeah.
titanium palm. Oh
Yep.
man, I thought they were the business.
Yeah. No, I remember Sonic Coast
yeah.
too. My first like expensive glove I got in middle school was the Royce,
Yeah.
and that was like my first kind of like experience into not the like entry level like kid glove
Yeah.
that you had. And it
Yeah.
was all white with just the black on the back as well.
I have a pair. So after I stopped playing, like I took back injury and then had concussions later on, and started this up. When I was a kid, we had money kid growing up. My parents split, and we kind of went to nothing. And when I started playing goal a lot and full time and getting serious about it, I remember my mom. I would have been, buddy, relax. What was it? Umbro Flare Premieres, white, that seafoam green, yellow bars. It was a flare wide cut. It was like $50 back in the day, but for my mom at the time, that was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it was the first real pair. It was like proper latex. Everything was there, and I was so excited and so happy. Like I said, for my mom, this was a lot of money at the time. Um, I had them under my pillow probably for the first 2 months after wearing them all the time and washing them. But my mom's like, you can't keep those under your pillow. Like they're getting disgusting. Like they're just gross. And so when I started this, one of the things is that, gloves at this time we started this were getting really outrageous. I mean, they're outrageous now for some, but the whole point was like, we never wanted to crack more than $100. I don't think we cracked more than 89 till maybe right before the pandemic. Everything was always below that, accessible, great gloves, because you burn through them. Yeah. Especially nowadays, you see kids, they're like, oh, I'm on turf 5 days a week. I'm playing a game. I'm doing this. Gloves are being trashed. And, if you have a lot of money, well, no big deal. If you don't have a lot of money, let me tell you, that's a real big deal. You're spending a lot of money on gloves. So one of our philosophies is always, we don't want that to be on the top. We want to provide an unreal glove at a great cost, a great price. And, like I said, I think we've done that over the years. But mine all stems back to these pair of Umbro Flare Premiers. I bought a pair off a buddy on eBay 3 years ago, size 7, so I can't wear them. But they're in the original Umbro case. They're pretty torn up. Cody, did I show you them when you were here?
No, you didn't.
Oh, I'll have to show you a photo. And it's that seafoam green with the yellow lines. Like, the nostalgia just goes there. Yeah. And then after that, it was a pair of the Adidas yellow and red gauntlets that was worn by, come on, ex-Liverpool mustache, lives in Canada now.
Oh, my gosh. You've got,
Why?
I'm picturing him. Bruce?
Bruce Gobler.
Grobbelaar, yeah.
He had a pair of those. They were actually horrendous, but they looked great. Then I had a pair of the Rish All-Stars or Rish World Cup Stars or whatever they were, white, black, yellow. But these Umbro Flare Premiers, like just thinking about them, it's just, Anyways, tangent. There we go.
I went down a rabbit hole of classic football shirts. I was looking at boots from like 98 to 2006 the other night. Like, that's what I do in my free time.
I remember.
I just kept getting a bunch of text messages of like old school jerseys, old school cleats, and I was like, B,
I need an apparel budget.
I was like, we need an apparel budget, and we'll start doing this.
My cleat stuff, I mean, if I had all the money in the world, it'd be bad. Like, I don't want to buy, like, I like Jordans, that's fine, or Dunks, or whatever people buy. I would have the most ridiculous setup of, like, old school Preds. I would go spend the $2,000 and find a pair of the Mania blue, Japanese blues. Like, just, I wouldn't think twice about it.
Absolutely.
I remember those.
But I remember it was 94 World Cup when those Predator jerseys came out. And there was the yellow and red and black and the green and blue. I can see Tony Miller and because I was living in Canada at the time, I was playing provincial team, so our version of like ODP. And I remember that was our goalkeeper kits for the 4 of us for our provincial team. And we were chatting one weekend, we were like 14, something like that. And we were all wearing to school, not realizing it. Like that was, we saw each other on the weekend for training, coming from all different parts of the province. I was like, oh, I wore mine on Friday. I was like, oh, I wore mine too on Friday. Like they were so cool. Yeah. That, like everyone was wearing them to school, and like you think about that stuff, like you were sweaty. Those things were gross. They were itchy polyester. They were horrendous,
nasty.
But they looked great. Oh yeah, all those old school. Like I mean, Sonico had a bunch of great ones back in the day. Obviously, you can go Jorge Campos style, but I mean, like you think it's a bunch of the ones coming out of Euro '96 and stuff like that. Like there were some really, as some people would say, horrendous, and I would say majestically amazing tops.
Yeah.
Like Umbro has some real unreals.
90s was peak goalkeeper kits,
for sure.
I would say.
Some psychedelic stuff going on. Stuff you look back and either you loved it or your kids are going to be like, what do you mean you wore that?
Yeah.
People let you out of the house in that. Oh, I wore that in games in front of people. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I was paid to wear this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I was going to say, I wanted to jump in and kick it off too with this one thing, which is I think is amazing. So I'm assuming
this is good.
You have your guys' roster of players on the website, right? And you get to work with a lot of pro athletes. There's one on the website I was really interested in. His name was Cody Dropper, up and comer.
Do you know that was brought to my attention? Oh, gosh, 2 years ago. And Trev, I wouldn't let our staff change it. I wouldn't let them change
Trev,
it.
I haven't seen that until today. I did not know that existed.
Oh yeah, no, that was brought up like 2 years ago. One of our meetings, our Tuesday start of the week meetings.
And
I was like, we gotta leave it.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can't leave it, man. That's wrong. I was like, no, we gotta leave it.
We gotta leave it.
And just I thought you knew.
I did not know that until he mentioned it today.
Doing my homework pre-pod.
Great.
That's fantastic.
And then I was laughing because I'm like, okay, it was misspelled. Not only that, Dropper as a goalkeeper, probably not the most
Cropper
flattering.
the Dropper.
Well,
Why
we
not?
used to talk about when we launched a new
TM.
glove, like, oh, a new glove dropping this day, and we're like, maybe we shouldn't say dropping this day because the whole point of like a nice pair of new gloves is not to drop things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to launch this day because that was the running joke. Is like we
Catch
can't
them
drop
today.
gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
so we actually it's fine. We're revamping that page, so eventually in the next like month it'll be nicely a little more done, and we won't be able to have the dropper. But oh yeah, that was brought up a couple of years ago, and I was like, no, we gotta
Yeah.
leave that. It
Well,
just
you should for sure just like for nostalgia's sake leave like obviously correct it, but then underneath it, aka cropper the
we
dropper or
we
something
could do
like this.
Cody, like in parentheses or brackets, dropper, cropper, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or some sort of formerly known as,
Yes.
Cody
Oh
dropper.
my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely. I
That
love
I
that.
didn't know
That
you
is
didn't know that.
that's
Oh,
great banter.
it's so bad it's good.
Yes, it,
it was. It had
exactly.
so many different twists in that.
Exactly.
I was dying in the office. So like I said, up and comer. Hopefully he can
Yeah.
break through at some point for you. Really bring some
That would be
views
nice.
to the brand.
He's just looking for a job.
Oh man. Speaking of that, I guess like so you played in the MLS. You probably have an idea, but like these days, right? What's it like working with the pros as far as on a weekly basis? Even things of like how many pairs do you have to send a guy? Does it matter if they're a starter versus they're fighting for minutes? I mean, how is it today doing your deals?
How kind can I be? Let's do it this way. I think it's like anything else in life and business. Some people really nice to deal with, really easy to deal with. Over the years, what I've learned, some people not nice to deal with, massive pain in the ass to deal with, massive egos, massive self-importance. Funny, when we did this, we first started this and getting players, we'd like Pinto at Barcelona, which was massive for us. We had one of the keepers at West Ham playing in the Prem. And none of our deals were big money deals. It was always through a friend, a person, this, that. I mean, it was always some cool kind of stuff that went along with it. And then we started, building. The company started growing. We started making some money, and we were able to spend some money on keepers. And one of the things I found was that getting a return on a keeper is tough. No matter who they are, no matter how big of a name they are, a lot of the times we would use it to get into marketplaces. So we'd have a big keeper at a big city or in a certain place in the country or at a club, and we would use that angle to leverage that into stores.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of players now, they realize they're a brand and they're a name, but then they didn't as much, and people didn't push as much. And like anything else in life, you have people who are massive self-promoters and massively good at promoting themselves and brands they're attached with, and you have ones who legit just, don't give a crap, and they're wearing the gloves, and that's good enough. So, I mean, we kind of changed our view on it. Is that this is gonna sound terrible. I would rather take $20,000 right now and put it into ad spend than go get a top MLS keeper for $20,000, because I am going to generate more revenue at the end of the day through ad spend than I am through that keeper. And that doesn't mean keepers don't hold value or players as ambassadors overall, because they do. It's just you have to be so careful of who you pick. And a really fun example is there's a brand called Storelli, a buddy of mine named Claudio Storelli.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy, great brand. We started at the same time, have some hilarious stories of driving to an MLS Final Cup after an event in the back of a van with no seatbelts, drinking beer. We were just starting on the ground doing this together. And I remember when he got Iker Casillas involved, and not for gloves, but just for his under paddock compression gear. And I think at the time Iker had 12 million followers or something like this on Instagram, like a big number. And I remember talking to Claudio after, of what it cost and all these things. And he goes, what I did, Trev? He goes, I spent X amount of tens of thousands of dollars to basically buy 8 million housewives from Spain and Portugal who love Iker. Because what he was doing is he thought he was buying 12 million followers on Instagram to go support the brand. What he didn't realize is that most of those followers are not people buying under compression padded gear. It's, as he said, people who like him and people who are this. And he was a lesson for him, and a very cheap lesson for me of going, because a lot of us go, okay, well, how many Instagram followers do they have? Or how many TikTok followers? Or whatever new thing is coming around the bend. But you realize that doesn't always convert into sales. It doesn't always convert into money. So, Cody knows this, and this is what I've come last few years, is that if I wouldn't sit down with you and have a coffee or a beer and have a good time with you and get to know you, because once again, this is my family company. This is how I put food on my table. This is how we make revenue for our family. I want it to be enjoyable. I want it to be great. But if I wouldn't sit down and have a coffee or beer with you, I don't want you involved. If you're not going to help me as I help you, I don't want you involved. If you're someone who's just, I'm here, I'm wearing the gloves, that's good enough. Yeah, it doesn't cut it for me. You get guys who are great and they love the gloves. And a great example is those guys that we have on board that could be getting a lot of money from other brands, and they don't. And they've been with us for years, and we have a great time together, and we've built a friendship, and like Cody and mine, like one that will be for life. And they can see, I don't need the extra money, and whether I can give it to them or not. They go, look, I want to be with this brand. I want to wear these gloves. I want to be in this business and friendship with you, Trev. And then we have some people who've come on board and left because they went to big, huge money, and that's cool too. But it's just that kind of it's so different of how many different people have different mindsets of. Some guys go, I want to be the guy who's making 80 grand, not because they need the money, and regardless if they need the money or not, but they want to be known as someone who, hey, I'm getting paid. Hey, I got a big deal. Where I know some guys in the Prem, and Cody, I'm sure you can test this, who were still buying their own gloves. Some like, just keepers are great save because they didn't want to be attached to a brand. They didn't want to have to be forced to wear something. These guys are making 50,000 pounds a month. And they could have had big deals, and they were still buying their own gloves because they didn't want to be attached.
You see it very regularly when a boot company like on Instagram will send Premier League players or championship players these old school boots that these players have fallen in love with. Companies no longer make. They leave these companies and then they just go and buy them from these third party companies that source the old school boots for them because that's what they want to wear, and they buy their own boots.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Cruz is still rocking those 11 Pros from Adidas.
Yeah.
Which I still think is one of the ugliest boots ever made. Wore them for a season. They were comfortable, my goodness.
Yeah.
But I thought they were heinous looking. Yeah. But he still wants to wear them, so they still do. But you're right, there's lots of guys who go out and do their own thing because they want to do their own thing. And gloves is kind of the same. So, we have, like I said, we have some ambassadors over the years who've been great, some not so much. But I've just kind of changed how I do it. I don't want any pain in the asses. I don't want any egos. Cody and I have talked about people who, I won't say names, but after one or two conversations, you're like, yeah, I never need to speak to you ever again in my entire life. And then you have some people who, come and visit and hang out and meet my kids, and we have beers and we do annual pro camps and we kick it. And it's a family, and they go, that's what I want to be a part of. So, we found, I think it was 5 years ago, at one point we had 13 starting MLS keepers, some on money, some not. But what I found at the end of the season was it didn't do that much for me. And I also had to be on top of a lot of them of, hey, I need a weekly post. Hey, I need a monthly interview. Hey, I need this. And it got to the point, it took up so much time and just even personal time. I was like, it's not worth it. So for me, it's more, we kind of curate who we have. We get asked 10 times a day, especially on Instagram, hey, I'm a keeper, insert USL club, 1 championship, 2. Or an agent saying, hey, my keeper just signed with so-and-so. And that's amazing. And this is wonderful. And congrats to you. This is a great accomplishment, and I wish you the best in your career. But right now, we're not looking to bring someone on unless, we're going and sourcing them. That's kind of it. So, I mean, for us right now, I know a lot of brands, it's the having a big name, and it, shows that they're credible. Like I said, one time we had 13 MLS starters, keeper at Barcelona, 2 keepers in the Prem, more gloves on soccer.com than anyone else. But it didn't do that much at times. It didn't move the meter times. Where the endorsers we have now do really well for us. Like I said, a lot of long people with us. And I feel just on the life value, I get way more out of that. And I'd rather build and be with someone over a long period of time. Much as I like money, and money is great, reach a point of like, well, I'd still have a much better time in life and have way less money and enjoy what I'm doing than be always grinding, hustling, trying to get more and more and more, and just being stressed and nonsense by it. And that's, I mean, Cody's a pretty low maintenance, great guy when it comes to being, he doesn't chew through gloves. We've had, and your question about some keepers have great technical ability and realistically go through 16 pairs to 20 pairs a season. We've had some guys who they palm grind like they're a 12-year-old because their technique's so bad, and they're going through 40 plus pairs a year. And there's some guys who just want to say, hey, I need 50 pairs of gloves a year. Well, you're number 2. You're going to play 15 games. I'm not being rude to you. I'm just saying, do you really need all those? But once again, it's this ego trip. It's about me. Yeah. It's this esoteric thought process. And you're like, yeah, no, I got no time for that.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
actually
I,
have,
I can actually remember when I first signed with Aviata, Trevor and I had never met. We'd never really spoken, and we were kind of going back and forth over text. He sent me a couple pairs of gloves. I tried them out, and I had decided to, go down the path of signing with Aviata. And he goes, "Yeah, so how many gloves do you need?" And I was like, "Well, like I'm just leaving my Nike deal. In my Nike deal, I had, 50 pairs." And he goes, "Do you actually use 50 pairs?" And I said, "No." I was like, I honestly, Trevor, I don't know if I use 50 pairs or not. But he was like, "Okay, well, I mean, for, you know, for your sake, we'll put 50 pairs in your contract, but I don't think you're ever going to use 50
no,
pairs
and we put
in
that
8 months."
and we'll put that, like, my biggest thing I tell people, like, if you come on board, the last thing you're going to get from us is a corporate setup where, well, here's your 48 pairs or here's your 36 pairs, and after that, I'm sorry, there's nothing more. No, if you are trained on rough grounds, if you're playing CONCACAF and you're playing this and that and whatever that new league is with the Liga
Leagues
Mexi
Cup.
and whatever it is, you're playing a million games a season, and you need more gloves. My goodness, the last thing I want is you in some ratty gloves on TV dropping balls. Okay, yeah, I'll get you some more gloves. But it comes down to, like, as the season goes on, yes, what do you need? It's not this, well, I need this and I have to have this. And I got no time for it. So that was always a
Yeah.
question. People's like, what do you actually need? I will always make sure you have gloves. But just don't come to me of like, well, I need 210 pairs and I need this. It's just, oh, man.
Well, when I'm away in Toronto, I'm going to need a blue pair. And when I'm home
Yeah,
against Miami, I'm going
exactly.
to need
We,
a.
well, and everyone's different. Like, we had a keeper, and I won't say their name, but they wanted to give their gloves away after every game. And I was like, look, that's nice and that's wonderful, but financially, I cannot afford that. Like, I can't be having you, like, this is a really nice sentiment. I think it's a wonderful thing to give your gloves to a fan after every game. That's great. But you're playing 38 games in a season. Uh, I also need my training gloves, and would need this, and I to say the person was kind of weird. They wanted a brand new pair for every game. I was like, why do you want a brand new pair? Fine, like,
That's super
I want a
interesting.
pair that's fairly worn. If I'm playing on
Yeah,
crappy turf somewhere and it's wet out, I want the most worn pair that still has grip that I can get with a little
yeah,
Vaseline on it, because that's going to be the difference for me. Like,
absolutely.
everyone's different, and then we have some people
Yeah,
who are so sweet, and they're a big name player, and they're like, oh, I only need 16 pairs. I don't want to be a bother. I
yeah.
don't want to. And it's like, and they almost like come to me like, do you mind if I get 4 more pairs?
See,
And you're like,
I could see Max
yeah.
being like that. I could see Max
Max is
being
Max
like that.
Max is very sweet. Ryan Terrero's like that. Ryan
Okay.
Terrero's, and congrats to her, just signed at Colo Colo in
Yeah.
Chile and back in the national program. She's very sweet about it too. She's always like, "Do you mind if I get more?" Yeah, of course. Like, of course you can get
Yeah,
more.
I'll
Like,
send him to you.
or there's some people I won't mention who were like, "I need 12 pairs this month." I was like, "Are you playing on gravel? Like, like, what are you doing here? Is there spikes on the ball in your league? Like, I don't." Yeah, like
Well,
anything else, it's a
fascinating.
business, and it's
Yeah.
fun, and gloves are amazing, and it's the coolest thing. But at the same time, it's dealing with people. It's still a
Yeah,
business. It still has that, like,
absolutely.
oh my gosh, I want to rip my hair out mentality.
Yeah.
So my follow up is obviously everyone knows that Adidas and MLS are tighter than most long term marriages at this point. Has that been a challenge or like a pain in your backside as far as getting gloves into goalkeepers? Because Cody was telling me essentially if you're unsigned or don't have an existing contract, by default you're supposed to wear Adidas, which blew my mind that they
So
wouldn't allow professionals to choose the best tools for them.
no, so it's funny, as we've grown, we figure ways around it. We've been smarter. At the first, it was really tough. Now, also, the new thing is to give MLS credit, or I guess I don't know how you want to approach this. You can pay a fee to put any players you want in your gear. So a brand we won't mention, who I'm not particularly fond of, they paid that fee. So you'll see them having more players in gloves because they can switch them over. So right now the deal is, at least in the goalkeeping world, you can Adidas, obviously, Nike, Puma, and this other brand. You don't need to have it under before you sign. So before, if I have a
Really?
goalkeeper, yeah. Now
I
we
know
we
who you're
talked to
talking
ML,
about.
we talked to MLS about 8 years ago on this, and they wanted, what was the number? It was something It was like over 200 grand for the entry. Then every year after, it'd be a negotiable fee. I was like, I'm not doing that. I'll just be smarter of how I do this, right? So when we're getting players in, when they're switching, and it used to be though, and Cody can test this, you could put down like 30 endorsees. Like as in like if I was a goalkeeper, I didn't know who I was going to sign with, I could put down Aviata, Renat, Nike, Adidas, Puma, One, Cavalier. You could put down as many as you wanted, and then decide as the season went on who you want to sign with. They got smart and said you get 3. You can put 3 down, that
Yeah.
or 4, whatever it is. They've
Yes.
changed it, right?
Their
So we
agents
used
were
to have to
just
jump through
copy
hoops.
pasting,
Yes.
lists
Yeah.
of brands.
So we'd have to be smart. So like when Evan Bush signed with us, when he was at Montreal, Matt Jordan, who was the GM at the time, who I had met when I was on trial with the Colorado Rapids one season, so we knew each other and could kind of go back to that. I said, look, Evan wants the gloves. It's mid-season. We got to figure how we're going to work this. And they're like, okay, let's figure this out. So what we did is Evan said when he had a pinky or index finger problem. I forget which one it was.
Yeah.
And went to the team doctor and explained this and explained the Puma gloves wouldn't offer what he needed, but the Aviata gloves did. So the team doctor then went and signed off on this and took it to Matt. And then Matt took it to the league lawyer, because there's a league lawyer that basically goes through this all and explained it all, and we got a one-off on this. Now, we've done that 2 or 3 times after that, and basically got told, yeah, exactly, Cody. Yeah. And
I can't
there's
imagine
one
what
other
your
too.
injury was.
And we basically got told we can't ever do that again. But we had to be smart. We had to figure stuff out. So we were doing that. And then once again, when you resign or you're a new player, we can do it. But we've had to. I remember we had I won't say their name because I don't want to get them in trouble, I guess. A keeper who was young, up and coming, signed, and he just simply forgot on his contract to put us down. We had a contract with him, right? All signed on our side, but on the MLS league contract, he didn't put us down. Called me 24 hours later, panicking, called his agent, and the league basically said, yeah, sorry, that's just the way it is. You're wearing Adidas. And he was panicking, and he was this, and it was all over. And like, this is back in the day. Like, I was like, oh, it's a big deal for us. I'm freaking out. And his attorney goes, oh, hold on. And he talked to the league and talked to the league lawyer. He's like, if something's wrong with that contract, can you send it back? And what he did was he then went and got our contract, backdated it, double official signed it, got that contract, backdated it, and basically jumped through some dodgy hoops, and went to the league and said, oh, we're going to get sued. We're going to get this. The Aviata was backdated. And the league lawyer just looked and was like, you guys are full of SHIT, but there's nothing else I can do about it. Sure, it's fine.
We'd rather this just goes away.
Yeah,
than really
we'd
go
rather
down
this
this.
goes away.
Clearly, you guys are
And so, like,
creative.
so we've had to do these things. And, nowadays, because we're not just grasping at any endorsees who are willing to come on board, it's not really a problem, because anyone who we're looking at legit, it's about like a year out. We're looking to see when their contract's breaking, when there's a new contract signing, and then we'll work in. It's no longer well, I want so-and-so, I need so-and-so, this, and you're panicking. It's more or less, yeah, we'll get it when it works. But when we were first at this, it was a real pain. And I talked to other brands too, and it was the same thing. It was really tough, and Adidas had a real hold on it. Same thing with boots. You don't have a boot deal, you're wearing these Adidas, and you're not wearing the Adidas you exactly want. I remember when Jakey Gleason was at Portland, Liam Ridgel was on obviously a better Adidas boot deal, and Jake was only getting the bottom middle range ones, and they're the same size, and Ridgey would just hand him down boots.
Yeah.
So he
What
could
are
buy the
we
nicer ones.
doing?
Yeah.
This is professional sports at the highest level in America, and we have pros handing boots down to other players.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, even now, like, and I've said this to Trevor. Even now, like, I will go maybe wear a pair of gloves for 2 or 3 games, and then I get to the point where I rotate to the next pair. And you have a younger pro who's maybe in the MLS Next program or is in the under 18 team who comes and trains with you 2 or 3 times a week, and they are technically under the Adidas contract as well, but they do not get gloves as frequently as what we do. So they'll get like 5 pairs to last them the entire season. And I'm looking at, say, like last year, I think I gave Max Anchor at Vancouver a couple pairs of gloves throughout the year because he would show up with these gloves that were just shredded. And I would walk in after a training day and I'd be like, hey, Max, like, I'm going into a new pair. These pair are a little stretched for my liking, like for my feel. and or do you want them? And he was like, that would be amazing because we only get like X amount of pairs per year. And I was like, dude, this is
We've had lots of
crazy.
young guys hit me up being like, hey, I was in Real Salt Lake Academy or this academy, whatever, and I love the gloves because whatever pro we had there was handing them down to them. I had no
Yeah,
idea these guys were wearing gloves. There are gloves, but they were just under the umbrella of the Adidas stuff, weren't getting stuff
yeah,
all the time. And as you know, not every kit manager is a top person. Some are more than willing to give out tons. Some are only giving out tons to the big names. Some are only
yeah.
giving out a little handout here and there. Everyone's different. Um, so if you're a young keeper and you're fourth and you're this, you're not getting top bins. You're
No,
on the straggle a little bit. So yeah, it's a different system,
yeah.
Um,
Well, even Isaac 2 years ago he would wear a couple pairs of Max's gloves,
yeah,
and then when I came to Vancouver and I was wearing Aviatas, he was talking to me about them, and I was like, "Do you have a glove deal?" And he said, "No." And this is at the time, so I signed. It was Thomas Asal, myself, and Isaac Bomer. We're the three first team keepers. He is still doesn't have a glove deal, or has a glove deal with a company from Germany, and they can't get his gloves into the country because of um, the like shipping delays.
Hmm.
And so I put him in touch with Trevor, and Trevor's like, "Yeah, like we'll sort you out." Like,
We can be a German glove
yeah,
brand for
like-
you, no
well,
problem.
it's funny because you vouched for him. I talked to Marky Village, said, look, because he was at Pacific here
Yeah.
the year after I stopped coaching when Mark became coach, and he was there training with Callum and playing. Nice kid, nice young man. Happy to help out. In situations like that, like it's that like he's a young kid, he's a BC kid. One of those, happy to sort you out. Happy, especially if it's a backyard kid for me, like in BC, happy to get gloves, For, if you're sending me up from Tallahassee, I'm like, yeah, I don't really know who you are, probably not right now, but something like that, more than willing to help him out. And great guy, great keeper. Hope he gets some minutes in this year. Be interesting to see what
Yeah.
happens with that team.
Yeah.
Be very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, like when it comes to glove deals and brands, everyone has their different. I was talking to a buddy who's got a brand, and they signed Joe Hart a little while ago, and we're having a great chat about that. And just like for me, they probably had to pay a pretty penny. I don't know what it was, but I'm assuming so. But Joe Hart is, and they put a lot of time and a lot of thought into it. A great guy, he's a great guy as a person, but he's a great guy as an ambassador. If you're a goalkeeper in the past 15 years who was a former pro, college, amateur, up and coming kid, or just a kid who followed footy and was a goalkeeper, you know who Joe Hart was. Whether you liked him as a goalkeeper or not, you knew who he was. So
Yeah.
you see Joe Hart attached to the glove. Okay, great. Because at one point Joe Hart was, it's called a top 10 in the world. He's great on social media. It's great on
Yeah,
his
he is.
podcast. He promotes himself well, and not in like, oh gosh, here's he again. No, like, he's great. Like, listen to him. He's interesting. And we were having this chat, and for me, I did like, and I won't say the brand's name, because I'm not giving free press away, but the great guys. I was like, wow, Joe Hart, what a great decision. Like, and I looked
Yeah.
at him and just, I wasn't there at the time, but finding certain ambassadors for me, him, perfect. If you have tons of money and you want the best guy you can get, you get a Prem starter who's the national number one for a different country outside of it. That to me is your all-time number one, right?
Yeah.
You have a national keeper at a big club, you have a Prem number one, you're getting best of both worlds. And I would say,
Speaking to a
like
few different target markets there.
right, you're hitting a few different markets. That to me was always the one. And here's one too: the female side of the sport is growing and booming. Our female ambassadors are unreal, and I will say this: dollar for dollar, glove for glove, I probably get more return on my money on a female pro keeper right now than a male pro keeper, solely based on the fact that, and we're lucky, all of our pro keepers on the female side are bigger names or big up and coming. They have good followings, but man, they're more pushing, they're more promoting, they're more. And I remember talking to one of them, and we're chatting about this, and she was like, "That's because we've had to push harder in sport.
Yeah.
We don't get the same thing guys do. We don't get the ease that guys do. So we're having to push and advocate for ourselves just on a regular basis. So when we have a deal like this, and like as Cody knows, like it's a pretty fun family affair, the glove stuff. and they're like, I'm happy to be a part of this. They push and promote, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to see. And her, I won't say her name. We were chatting about this, and I was like, it's true. I was like, I can't tell you that any one of our female endorsees doesn't do all they can for us, because they do. It's above and beyond. I can tell you that not all our male endorsees do everything they could for us or go above and beyond. Some do, some
For
don't.
sure.
Yeah.
Some I've had over the years have less expectations about, because otherwise it's just too stressful. But it's a real thing that, So I mean, like a lot of our, like Katie Talbert, who plays at uh Sporting. Why am I having a meltdown now? She plays in Portugal at Sporting Lisbon. That's not right at all. She plays at Benfica for me. Seriously, not in my mind today. Cut that out. That sounded terrible. Try again. Katie Talbert, who plays at Benfica, playing in the Champions League, starting in the league, super fantastic on social media, really promotes herself, promotes the brand. She's got 50,000 followers here and people there. We get a ton of glove purchases and exposure from her. And, that's probably one of our top three endorsees in regards of what we get. And it's amazing because she just pushes and promotes. Where, like I said, a
Absolutely.
lot of the guys, not to slag them, it's not the same. And I also find that, this is not to sound sexist against men are way more entitled.
Oh,
Guys think they
without a
deserve
doubt.
way more.
Without a doubt.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Guys have this real, like, not all of them. And, our guys aren't that way. I mean, Max Rippo, great human being. Evan Bush, great human being. Cody Dropper, above average on a good day. But guys come with this real kind of ego where, like all of our female endorsees are top players, whether NWSL or, Kate Talbot, right, at Benfica, or Ryan Terrell at Colo Colo. And they're all just super humble and nice and wonderful. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
the guys.
that's my rant on, if I could have, 9% female endorsees compared to men, I would do it.
Yeah, well, and obviously the men get hit up with a lot more opportunity, and the women,
Absolutely.
they don't. And I did see on your page you had it. I mean, I'm assuming the NWSL is far easier. They don't care. They're probably welcoming deals for any of their goalkeepers on the women's side.
You know what? That league's done more than any of the leagues prior to it have. And I think even for endorsements, I don't think you would find one female keeper in that league that doesn't have a good glove deal. Where you look back in the league prior to this, which was a similar name, the one that Puma sponsored, I believe, in the league prior to that, you would find, I can't tell from the non-goalkeeper side, from the goalkeeper side, women that didn't have deals. Where nowadays, I think brands are starting to finally realize that, from a business perspective, there is a huge ROI on female soccer. There's a huge growth. There's a huge explosion. You're
Absolutely.
getting stuff back. And unfortunately, as anything else, business is business. If you don't make any money, then you don't have a business. So you have to look for that ROI. But they're starting to see that. So I don't think you would see any, women goalkeeper that I know of in the NWSL that doesn't have a good glove deal, or, a woman who we lost who's a tremendous goalkeeper, Casey Murphy, who is the women's national number one or two, depending on the day right now, was wearing Aviata for a while, and her agent set her up an unbelievable Adidas deal. And we had first red refusal. And they're like, "Can you get close?" And I was like, "Yeah, not to that deal." And it was funny because his comment to me was, "Do you think it's too much that you can't get your money back because she's a female player?" And I said, "Not at all." I was like, first off, super athlete, super person, very marketable. Let's be honest here. She's a very good looking person. That's a lot easier to push and campaign and be on posters than not. And I'm not trying to say that that comes into life, but that's real. That is a
Yeah,
real
it
thing.
is.
Super smart, super intelligible. But I was like, I just can't get around that number. But I was so, and I hated to lose her as an endorsee. But man, I was so pleased for her because, I won't say the number, but she got a 4-year deal from Adidas that is going to pay her handsomely, that she deserves.
Yep.
And it was really actually cool to see that side of that coming up, because we all know the Adidas deal for men's, for World Cup team and national team, is plentiful
Astronomical. Yeah.
on a bad day. So it was great to see the women's side, especially a goalkeeper, because let's be honest, goalkeepers do tend to get shafted compared to field players, and not as cared for or thought about in the first mindset. That to see Casey get this unreal deal, which like I said, if I had the money, I would have loved to have kept him signed around. Like I said, what a great ambassador for the brand, and what a great person. Which couldn't, but it was great to see her get this deal. broke my heart a little bit because I would have loved to keep her with us, but it was really cool. So I think on the women's side, you're starting to see now that top women are getting top deals they deserve.
Yeah.
And it's just such a funny difference compared to when I was a kid. And for myself, having a daughter who likes footy, I would love to see her get to a point where she's at a level if she wanted to play that, and to get actually some better exposure. We know the pay's not there, and there is a massive pay equality gap. But just the fact that like anything else, it does take time, and it's nice to see it starting to finally come around.
For sure.
Yeah, no,
Man,
I
I
mean
just
that's
go down rants. I go down rants and I go down tangents.
yeah, no, it's good to like get the perspective on the women's side as well. Like
Yeah.
obviously we're two guys here, yourself, like we know our side of it, but for you to be able to have the perspective on both sides, I think that's it's good to know, and like good to hear that things are on the upswing. Obviously it's been a rough run for U.S. soccer, a little bit their fault, but to hear that things are changing and more opportunities are coming. All the women need is the opportunity for the sustainability, right? To be able to just solely focus on their art and craft versus having to have a side job or partnership. And these are the things that help them just be full professionals. So anyways, I'm excited. That's really cool. I guess from your side, Cody, we talked a little about the gloves. I'm interested in, why you ended up going with Aviata. It sounds like, you guys did a pretty quick deal. You still use them. Obviously
it's because
Trevor,
I'm handsome, really.
It's because of how good looking Trevor
well, and it sounds like you
not my hair right now. My hair is I'm growing this out. I'm trying to help Cody with his hair by growing mine out.
He's gonna
It
cut it
seemed
off.
like a tremendously good idea at the time. I think I'm going to chop it off next week. It started to look ridiculous.
But it seems like Trevor was the classic glove, right? No frills. I mean, Adidas, their gloves right now look like you're a freaking X-Men. I mean, I don't know what's going on there.
Well,
but they sell.
They do.
The hype.
They do sell. And
the creative directors designing their gloves, unfortunately.
Yeah. I believe you have, created gloves that speak to a different market in terms of kids or female athletes or male athletes. And those goalkeepers that like the classic look or the new look with the neo splash, like the graffiti.
We have some bright, we have some fun, we have some colorful, and then we have some classic. And selfishly, when we first started this, way back in the day, which is 13 years now, 14 years, however long it's been.
Another overnight success, Trevor.
I selfishly built a glove that I wanted to wear. It was simple as that. I thought of all the gloves of my liking back in the day, as we talked about, and all my influences, and brands that I had deals with prior, what I liked in the glove, what I didn't like in the glove, and when the first gloves started rolling out, they were okay, they were this, they were that, and we kind of started finally fine-tuning it. Really, I realized that I'm just building a glove for myself.
Right.
I'm building something that I, on a day-to-day, would want to wear. And we still had some good feedback from some guys that when I stopped playing, that were still playing pro and putting some, good thought in. And really is I don't want a light, flimsy glove. And we make some lighter speed gloves or whatever you want to call it. We make some more of the silhouette style gloves. But I want a glove that I put on and said, yes, that feels like a glove. It feels sturdy. It feels complete. And for me, like our Stretta series, I think that's it. And when any pro I know of has put on our Stretta Magnetic, every single one goes, yeah, so that's a glove. That in the most basic of concept, wow, that really is a glove.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to beat. I think it has a certain feel. And if you're from a certain generation, but even that, a lot of the younger kids I know now wear that glove, and their comments the same. They'll put a different glove on of a different brand. The different brands are a little more of a lighter. Flimsy is the wrong word. So that sounds rude. No, screw it. Flimsy glove. And they put this on. They go, this feels so much better. And it's nice to see younger kids still coming up with that. So I mean,
absolutely.
Do I think our gloves have a marketplace for all keepers? I think we make something for everyone. Do our gloves kind of go back to a little more of a structured, glove from our day growing up, but a little later than our day? Yeah. Do I think there's some Cells influence of that, H2O, Aqua Wrap, Cells 360, mid 2000s? Yeah, I think so, because that for me was a glove. With that being said, before I started Aviata, I wore Nike VG3s. Like the old VG3s. I used to wear the old Sparks.
I love the Vapor Grips.
Wore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were about as flimsy and light as anything can be, but I
100%.
liked them.
Yeah.
It was a simple latex palm. So that's where as a freshman, my senior goalkeeper's like, this is the only thing I'm wearing because it's a pure latex palm. He's like,
Yep.
you're getting the best grip right now.
Yep. It's actually funny you bring those up. I think I gave you a pair of those
Hell
recently.
yeah.
I had a pair sitting
I like
in a
Nike. I
box.
like those, and then the black T90 ones that Paul Robinson wore with the
Yes.
gun cut, the red line coming down.
Yes.
Those, the rest, I had SGTs for a while. What I remember
I didn't
being
like the
in
SGTs.
no, we were
I
in
wore them in
Pachuca.
college.
They were too
We were in
bulky.
Pachuca preseason or I was Pachuca with the Colorado Rapids in preseason, and I had 4 pairs of SGTs with me, and they all ripped within the first week. The
Yep.
lining, the I
And
couldn't.
I'll tell you what, even when I wore Nikes, they ripped.
They
The
ripped.
gun cuts because of the way that they
Was
were
it right
stitched.
here?
No, that it was across because remember the
The
Nike
two middle
gun cuts,
fingers.
they had the two middle
They're out.
fingers stitched.
They're outsewn. Yeah.
Yep, that would tear once every other week, and
Yep.
that's one of the reasons I had 50 pairs of gloves in my deal, was because I'm assuming they just knew that gloves would rip, gloves would tear.
They just ripped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've never had that issue with Aviata. So
No,
for
look,
me,
our gloves are good, man. Like I was the
they
first to
are.
say, like as you
They're
know, I
well
love other
built.
gloves. I'm a glove nerd. I still, will see other brands and go, hey, I love that glove. Or hey,
Yeah.
like Calaire just made out a fantastic glove I saw the other day. I was like, yeah, that's a great glove. I even had a conversation about the new Puma, which is a pretty speedy, tight garden glove. But I was like, with Haynes the other day, I was like, I like it. He's like, I hate it. I was like, I gotta say, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I want to wear it in the game, but looking at it, I go, yeah,
Right.
it's aesthetically
Looking at
pleasing.
it.
That looks all right. If I was a young kid, I get why you go, hey, that's a
It's
good
just
looking
like
glove.
this.
I'm into that.
Yeah. Well, it looks like the Adidas glove.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
Also,
similar with
I'll
the
give you
no
a hint.
strap.
I'll give you a hint. They're made in the same factory.
Weird.
Yeah, I mean, once you get to certain point, we kind of talked a little bit about that too. It's you get a manufacturing hub that specializes in these things, and it's cheaper for everyone to get them made in the same place. So,
Puma and Adidas are all made from Jurg and Hockma that out of Germany, and they're either made in the Hungarian factory. The Ukrainian factory I don't think is up and running right now, and they got a few others, but yeah, that's why, like, when they first came out, they're like Speed Style glove 5 years ago, and Pumas and Adidas were all ripping right in the cuff, and
Yeah.
they're having the quality control issues. Well, it's coming out of the same factory, and
Yeah,
they're all having issues with that.
no, that makes
Fascinating.
sense. What was like because I loved, like, I wanted to feel like you almost had like a weapon on your hands. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to feel the glove. I wanted to hug my hand.
Yep.
That was
And
we had a hashtag for a while. It was weapon of choice for gloves. It was because it's a goalkeeper. People think they go, well, you're the
100%.
last line of defense. No, it's your weapon. This is your,
Absolutely.
whether you're defending, you still have a weapon, and that was one of our lines for a while was weapon of choice, you know, because it is. So
Yeah.
sorry, I cut
Agreed.
you off. What were you gonna say?
No, you're right. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I can totally understand. Obviously, in my adult co-ed 7-on-7 leagues I play in, it's a little less competitive.
Sunday
But
afternoon
hey,
beauties right there.
I know I might have to, steal a pair of Cody's Aviatas and,
Yep.
bring
Absolutely.
him to the leagues, become an influencer for you. What was like the one thing were you trying to solve, like one thing in particular when you started it?
You know what it was? I was told after an injury that I might never play or coach again from an injury that I took playing. We were playing against Chivas Guadalajara in a preseason match. I was playing out of my mind actually really well. I held a ball I should have parried, came down, landed weirdly on my L5S1, had to come out at half. And I remember the team doctor jabbing like a pen or a knife or something in the bottom of my foot. He's like, "Can you feel this?" I was like, "No, can't feel it." I was like, "All right." So it's a big chat, all these things, and 3 months later, they're like, "Yeah, you're in trouble. This might not, happen." So I was kind of sitting there one day, and I was like, "Well, what in God's green am I going to do? I've only ever played as a job or coached as a job, or at that point, I've been in LA and I've been doing some soccer acting gigs on commercials and movies as a job. I had really no other skill set in this world. I had like a 3/4 finished economics degree. And I was kind of like, what am I going to do? And I'd always been a glove nerd. I'm pretty sure the girl I was dating at the time left me eventually because I'd be up late night on, glove sites looking at gloves. She probably thought I was looking at porn or something, but no, it was gloves.
Probably.
And I was kind of like, I had a bunch of buddies who were still playing pro, and I could get gloves. Like, I'm gonna try to make some gloves. And but one of the things was me thinking back to those Umbro Flare premieres and my mom and the money and how what a big deal was, is that I wanted to make a fantastic, accessible glove that didn't cost you so much, and that had great durability and great grip, and that you were trying not to compromise on, right? That you weren't giving one up for the other. And that's kind of how it came to be. And like I said, we made some test models, and we started getting into it. We talked to Saunders, who was in LA at the time, because I think the season before, him and I were in preseason together, and then reserves. I was like, Josh, try these out. What do you think? He loved them, and we just started pushing them around. But really, it was, can we make a great glove that's not going to cost mom and dad a ton of money, that's going to have durability, and something that looks great? Because at the time, there was one other American independent brand before us called Primo Sport, that I believe sold out to New Balance, if I'm not mistaken, because they had a bunch of actual tech things. They had a weird ball pump thing on one of their balls. I don't think they had any glove tech, but they had other complementary soccer products, and I think they sold out to New Balance. And after that, when they were done, we were the only current independent brand. My Greek buddy at the time, what was his brand's name? The guy Kansas City, the big Danish guy, wore him for a while when they won MLS Cup. Jimmy.
Yeah.
Nielsen, Jimmy Nielsen.
Jimmy
Yeah,
Nielsen.
so he wore him. So there was only 2 or 3 of us, but that was a big part of it. Was like, we wanted to put something out in the marketplace that was different, that wasn't there, that just wasn't every other brand. Like at that time in the U.S., you could get Nike, Adidas, Reusch, Puma, Uhlsport. You can find some Renault coming out of Mexico.
Yeah.
What else was around? I'm trying to think. If you went really down the internet, you could find like Darby or Arima or stuff like this. You get Cells and Cell Sport. Sondico was just kind of fading out, but there wasn't that American brand, and we're like, we wanted to be that. And lots of other great American brands and some not great have come after us, but really we're the kind of forefront that started that.
By the way, I had a pair of Puma King gloves like back in the day. I just tried them. I worked at a soccer retail store, so my paycheck went right into inventory for me.
Yes.
Was always going to.
They were like these really big, thick gloves, just absolute pieces of trash, like foam ripped. Like they were just. It was like the Puma Kings was white with like the gold and the black, just like trash.
You know what's funny? I just chatted the other day, and there was other independent brands starting when we were starting. Mostly a couple in the UK, one Australia, a few others. And over the years now, you have all these bigger independent brands. So they're still independent, but they're bigger. And we're in this chat of, I think the whole movement to independent brands in that, early 2010 for us, and for a lot of brands 2014 in that range, it made all the bigger brands actually start making nicer gloves because they had to.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they couldn't just rely on, we're a big name, we're a big brand, here's our gloves. All of a sudden, they had to start putting some R&D in. They had to start putting some looks in. They had to start putting some other ideas and stuff coming up to make it, because all these independent brands were really pushing the market with some really innovative ideas and some innovative looks. And I think it's actually been a great thing for the glove community that all these independent brands, and I know a lot of people for a while started hating on them because legitimately everyone had a brand all of a sudden. In 2018, everyone in their next door neighbor had a brand coming out of somewhere. But the main ones that did it, they really pushed everyone else, and they kind of made everyone else start better and better gloves. And they look at these gloves now, you go, wow, that it's not my style, son, but that's a great looking glove. With they're really trying to do all these things on it. We compared like the Adidas Finger Safe from the '96 or the '99 '98 World Cup. You're like, that's a real piece of crap. That's a real bulky just piece of garbage. Or now you're like, wow, they actually care. They're putting ideas into. They're doing this. They're doing that.
They're aesthetically pleasing. The color schemes are different.
Nike's still doing Nike, where they kind of just move the swoosh somewhere and maybe put a second outline and some stuff. But overall, their gloves are actually a little more structured and have a little better feel to them than the back in the day ones. Puma's gloves are, night and day way better than what they were back in the day. But I mean, even look at Uhlsport, look at Reusch. I mean, I loved their stuff back in the day, but it was bulky and clunky. Or that the new stuff now, it's incredible. Now it's also ridiculously expensive, but I do think all these independent brands have really upped the game for gloves around the world. And also, I think it's created that atmosphere of like, I remember some young pros coming up, and they're like, what cut do you like? And they're like, well, normal cut. These are guys who were college, like all conferences, coming into MLS and didn't even know what cut they wore because they just wore whatever. Where now I have 12-year-olds who are like, well, I like an inseam cut here and I like a negative cut there, and have you seen this new hybrid cut and this and that, and like, wow. And I think a lot of the independent brands, pardon me, were a great influence with having obviously the knowledge of the internet and that kind of ability to check things out. That really changed the goalkeeper community into this really interesting, innovative, place compared to before. It's like, here's your flat cut with whatever, have a good time. Here's
Yeah.
this. Now kids are like, oh, I like this latex, or I like that latex, and I like a wrap thumb, or I don't want a wrap thumb, or I want a full negative cut, or like I said, that didn't exist back in the day. Kids now are like, oh, I like latex gussets instead of mesh gussets. If you asked a 12-year-old 20 years ago, they'd be like, oh, it's a goalkeeper glove, awesome, I'll wear it, great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like rolled fingers and gun cut was about like in general what I was seeing, like coming out, and the fact that now the gloves are hybrid, almost like a sole plate on a shoe, is like fascinating, right? And so like just the level of technology is really like just impressive, and to like go to the website and see all these different things. I talked to Cody now obviously about things just to make sure he's up on the latest.
Yeah, well, he's getting old. It happens. We all get old, and we go back to our old ways.
He hasn't even turned 30 yet. What are we doing?
I know. I'm 29, 12 years running now. Is that what? Yeah, something like that.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a different place now. To be honest, and be curious to see in 10 years where it goes.
Yeah.
What innovations next? What's out there? What is?
Have we tried brass knuckles?
I don't know. Have you tried that yet?
No, what's funny? We tried to build a Caterpillar system about 5 or 6 years ago of spines, where it was almost like a mechanics wear glove, where it had like the angle in your fingers. When it went flat back, it actually locked.
Oh, yeah.
We've tried a lot of interesting things over the years. At the end of the day, a simple glove does work. Like we were the first brands ever to have a punch pad system. I think actually one of probably top first 3 ever to have a punch pad system. Should have patented a lot of it if it didn't have the money at the time. But that became a rage, and now that's kind of gone to the side a little bit. That's not longer a bigger thing. Adidas tried that wrist control thing, which everyone was all rage for a year. Then everyone realized, wow, it sucks, and it's a lot of money. So let's not do that. I have one in the mix right now, which I can't say because I'm working on. But if it works, it could be really, really cool. It's more of an injury prevention system in a glove. I think that's where a lot of this is going to go because, as you break a finger, you're in trouble. You pop a knuckle, you're in trouble. I remember doing my thumb in LA in preseason, and who was behind the goal? It wasn't Can at the time. Cronin. Steve Cronin? Steve Cronin.
Yeah.
I think it was at the time. And he's like, is it broken or popped? He was 12 feet behind me. You could hear it pop. And I remember going to the physio after and being like, I wasn't signed. I'm trying to get a job. And the guy was really cool. I forget his name. The physio was like, hey, look, I know you're trying to get a job. I should tell Yallop that your finger's done, but let's see if we can heat mold a plaster cast if it works. And we were in there heat molding a plaster cast because when your finger's done as a keeper, like no one's going to sign you. No one's going to. So I think for a lot of goalkeepers going forward, that's why you see some of them tape so many fingers. And it's like, I think injury prevention is kind of the next future tech. Yeah, the next future technology is injury prevention gloves.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't have your 2 thumbs, your 2 pointer fingers, you're not catching anything. And like you said, he's taped up to the high winch just because like if I can reduce impact or something by any amount, you're like, I'm taking
protect the knuckles.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
and you look at keepers' fingers. I mean, like you can see mine. Like my index finger bends almost 90 degrees. That comes out. Like
Rob Green's my favorite. He even embraces it with the wonky finger. I mean, his pinky is like goes sideways.
Oh yeah,
it's
shocking.
Wild.
Shocking.
Jamaican keeper Donovan Ricketts, retired, older guy. His pinky legit was almost sideways. When he was putting it into gloves, he had to like stuff it into the glove and then let it expand and come out, and had to like have the pinky hold his finger because it legit just went sideways.
That's rough.
It was
that is
absolutely
rough.
crazy. So, but I think that's the next thing in gloves, right? You can only do so much with latex. You can only do so much with formulas. Like we all know the secret was like, oh, it's a glove putty. In the rain, it makes gloves better. Buy it. Kids, just go get Vaseline. Put on your gloves a little bit. That's actually what it is in the wet. So 100%. I mean, and grip can only get so much grip. And once again, too, as balls change, and patterns on balls and slippiness of balls. We'll be changing of latex, but you can only do so much with latex until someone creates a hybrid latex that isn't real, that has a better grip. And they tried that with the orange palm stuff that was so tacky in the dry, but once it got wet, it was like oil. So I don't know where that's going next, but I do think injury prevention for goalkeepers is the next big thing.
Yeah.
We always steal that stupid cliche from football. The best ability is availability,
Absolutely.
So if you can help with that, like non-starter, makes sense.
Yep.
It's hard to play when you can't stay on the field because you're in.
Yeah. Especially as a goalkeeper. You're in or you're out. There's no in between.
Unfortunately, that is an aspect of the
when
business.
you're in and you have a good run of games and you're playing well and you're healthy, well, the guy behind you and the guy behind him going nowhere near the field.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? You're waiting for the opportunity to let that door open and wedge your foot in there and take that chance. So if you can stay on the field and do all you can to stay on the field. Who was the guy? Were you there at Cincinnati when it was the European guy who was like basically couldn't train the first 4 days?
Yep.
Of every week and would just play games, and he was like 30 years old, legitimately had like osteoporosis and his body was falling apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why can I not remember his name?
I'm picturing it too, but
good keeper.
He was Polish.
Just body was done at 30. Couldn't stay in the field.
Crazy.
No. Well, anyways, it's been fantastic chatting, Trevor.
Yes.
I mean, thank you so much. I'm sure you'll be a recurrent guest, especially once the league kicks off.
I'm happy to sit and have verbal diarrhea whenever you want. And I'm sure this is going to seem like when you put this together, the most sporadic, all over the nonsense that really was. But I loved it. Right? I mean, the problem is I can sit here and talk goalkeeper until I fall asleep.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, and like you said, that's why between us three, we can cover it all.
Yes, we can.
But yeah, we'll bring it back again. Links in the description to Aviata, Cody's discount code, so you can try to help him out.
CJC 15.
Oh yeah, let's make some money and feed my kids.
There you go. Let's do it.
Well, anyways, appreciate it. Thanks for sharing all the stories. Like I said, links in the description. Check them out. We'll be back in another episode covering the U.S. men's national team, the updates and everything going on there. So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned, and we'll be back.